Hey guys, Zom Fox here, and today it's time to do my Week 9 picks for the 2024 United Football League season. We are just 2 weeks away from the regular season being over, and this next week, sadly, is where we start seeing games that just straight up don't matter. Yes, technically both one seed races are still up for grabs, but the USFL 1 really doesn't matter since the game is going to be at Birmingham and will basically only be played for, who gets to choose whether or not they kick off or receive the ball. And even then, Michigan has to have a bunch of things go right for them to actually get that spot anyway. So it really isn't going to happen. And then the XL side, that one still has the race for it. But especially considering the fact that, again, the playoffs are already decided. This week has a lot of games that don't really matter, but at the same time, there's a few games that do have some interest. So without further ado, let's look at the Saturday games. Now, the Saturday games, the first one is the Battlehawks versus the Renegades. Now, this is where we start seeing some of that smart coaching being made. AJ McCarron is not going to start this week. He is healthy enough to play, but why put him out there to potentially get him hurt unless they need him? So what they're going to do is start Manny Wilkins, and and put McCarron at QB2. If for some reason they're losing really badly or, it's not looking good for him, then you can put AJ McCarron back into the game and allow him to get you the W. This is a very smart move, as if he were to get hurt, that would really hurt their championship aspirations. So only having him as the backup and only putting him in if they need to was a very big deal. Now, against the Renegades as well, this is a Renegades team that basically just playing for pride. They're playing to show that they're really not that bad a team despite being 1-7. Again, they've basically almost never gotten blown out in any game. But I think the Battlehawks do win this. With or without McCarron, I think they get the W, but I think it's just barely. Look, I think it's going to be 21-18. I think Wilkins is not going to have as good a game as he did last week. While passing-wise, he was very okay. His rushing game was incredible. I don't expect him having that good a day. And as for the Renegades, the Battlehawks defense is really good. So I think that in the end, it's going to be 21-18 with the Renegades losing by 3. I do think they cover. This is a team that is very good at keeping games close. But I do think it's the under. I just don't see this game being a high-scoring affair. Even though it could, I think that that's how the Renegades actually pull this off, is if it's a high-scoring game. But in the end, I think that St. Louis does get the W. It's just that they are a better overall team, even though Perez is the best QB in that game, especially with McCarron playing hurt if he were to play. It's just, come on. The St. Louis defense is so much better than the Renegades defense. Because of that, because of issues at running back the Renegades have, I think that in the end the Battlehawks do clinch out a very tight victory to all but seal that number 1 seed, even though, it matters a lot in the XFL Conference Championship game, or the preview in Week 10. Gonna give it to the Battlehawks. Now, as for the second game, the Stallions versus Brahmas, this is the game I will be streaming. I will be going live 15 minutes before the game starts. Didn't do a stream last week, doing one this week. This is a big one. Look, this is a game that does matter a lot. This is a game that has huge implications on the 1 seed in the XFL Conference. This is a game that matters a lot for the Stallions' undefeated dreams. Everybody's saying, should they rest their starters or not? The last time they were in this situation, the exact same situation, Skip Holtz did not rest his starters. He started Jamar Smith against the Gamblers in Week 9 a couple of years ago. This is that other massive game. Look, we talked about it. The Roughnecks game last week was a huge game in getting rid of that demon of losing to the Gamblers in Week 9. This is now Week 9. This is another huge demon. They were 8-0 again 2 years ago, and they lost in Week 9. This is a huge deal for the Stallions to win this game. The Stallions, if they want to go undefeated and have that, truly incredible season, they need to get this W. Now, should the Brahmas be plus 8.5? Yeah, they should. Look, everybody pretty much agrees that Dormade is not it. Even though his counting stats from afar looked really good last week, everybody kind of agrees that he was benefited a ton from yards after catch from guys, taking balls 50 yards after where they caught him and all that. But in the end, though, I think they do cover. I think the Stallions win 28-20. Look, the Brahmas defense, I don't know if it's better than St. Louis. They're both pretty comparable. Same with, really the top 4 defenses are the 4 teams in the playoffs. I know it's shocking. Defense wins championships. But the way I look at it is the Brahmas defense is very comparable to the Battlehawks defense. You can argue which one is way better, which one is a little better, one way or the other. But I do think the Stallions only put up 28. I would not be shocked if they were to rest starters for part of the game. Like, let's say they get to an early, 20-10 lead or something like that, and then put in Corral. And then in the second half, make the game closer and all that. Again, the Brahmas are basically, they're hoping that Garbers is fully healthy soon. He got put off the IR. He is on the inactive roster, but there are reports he might be ready to play in Week 10 and probably will be ready for the playoff games. So there's a huge question mark of exactly how do they deal with, Chase Garber's return. Is this going to be that chance to let Dormade truly air it out instead of just throwing, a bunch of checkdowns that is, running back takes for 50 yards, and is going to be him actually going out there and throwing the ball and seeing what he can do? I don't know. I do think it hits the over, though. I think 44 is a bit too low. Again, the Battlehawks defense and Brahmas defense are very similar, and we saw the Stallions put up 30 points against them. So 28 is only because I think they might put in a backup. And as for the Stallions defense, I just wouldn't be shocked if they were to allow 20 points to the Brahmas. I do think the Brahmas cover. I think 8.5 is just, it's a bit too large. I get that the Brahmas, a lot of their wins were very fluky. At the end of the day, they still are a 6-2 team. You still have to treat them with some respect in that regard. And 8.5 is just a bit too crazy. I mean, again, St. Louis against San Antonio was a close game itself. It wasn't like it was, a 1-point game, but it was a closer game. And St. Louis kept it within just a couple points against Birmingham, so I don't know why the spread is 8.5, especially since this game is at San Antonio, whereas the St. Louis game was at Birmingham. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense. I think Birmingham gets the W. I do think this Brahmas cover, though. Now, Sunday has the last regional broadcast for the year. I bet a lot of you guys didn't know that. But yes, this is the last one of the season. We have 2 games at 2:30 on Fox, Sunday, May 26th at 2:30. Let's be very clear here. I think everybody hopes that the DC-Memphis game is only shown basically in DC and Memphis. In fact, I bet a lot of people in DC and Memphis, mainly Memphis, well, really both, don't even want to see this game either. This is the one game of the week that literally nobody cares about unless you're a fan of either team. Especially considering the fact that we've seen the USFL a couple years ago make, the one pick or the first overall pick be between, the winner of a tank bowl. It could end up happening. I mean, remember the Showboats play the Roughnecks in Week 10, so who knows what that game ends up happening. But in terms of mattering, this game has no real meaning aside from, potentially costing the Showboats the number 1 overall pick. And even then, they still could get it even if they win this game. It's just, this is a game that doesn't matter. Look, it's at Memphis. Early estimates of people just, guessing truly on their head is this game legitimately could have under 6,000 people again. Because, again, it is a such meaningless game. DC is -5 despite it being at Memphis. Over-under is 46. DC is -238. Look, this is the game that I would say if you're going to bet on the UFL and actually put money on this league, do not bet anything on this game. This is me just totally throwing a shot in the dark because I could see any outcome. When you're talking about a game that's this meaningless, anything can happen. So I'm going to be the safe one. I'm going to say 26-24 DC wins. It hits the over barely, and it's a +5. I think the Showboats offense does something against DC. I think DC's offense does something against Memphis' defense. These are 2 defenses that aren't good. These are 2 offenses that, well, admittedly aren't really good either. But, I mean, don't bet on this game. That's what I would say. I would only live bet on this one. If you're going to bet, I would not bet at all. This is just me giving safe picks because it's just, when you're talking about a game like this, we're in Week 9. It does not matter who wins this game for any real reason. So you could very well see this game be a 20-point blowout either way, which, again, even though it would be insanely shocking to see Memphis actually blow out a team by 20, when you're talking about a game that doesn't matter, who knows if Te'amu ends up starting? He might. This is recorded before the official depth chart comes out naturally. I wouldn't be shocked if he's put on the bench because it doesn't matter and they let McClendon start. And if he starts, it's that thing of he doesn't have a ton of film on him. Maybe he ends up having a great game. As for Memphis, I wouldn't be shocked if Love starts. It's just, no one cares about this game, really, unless you're a Memphis or DC fan, and even then, do you really care that much? 26-24, it's just a total guess. Total crapshoot. Now, the last game is one that does matter, and that is the Panthers versus Roughnecks. Again, the way for Michigan to get the 1 seed is virtually impossible. It's like that Memphis situation last year in the USFL where they could have technically made the playoffs in Week 10, if I remember correctly, but they would have had to have, an insane point differential to end the year. But this game still does matter in the sense that Michigan is trying to prove they're still, that team. There's been, some more talk about are they the 3rd best team in the league, and to stay that way, they need to win this game. Continue building momentum, try to get to the championship, or try to get to that Week 10 game especially at 7-2, especially because we don't know for sure what the QB situation is. I wouldn't be shocked if Etling and Perkins both play. I wouldn't be shocked if they continue with Perkins-Lurkey. I wouldn't be shocked if it's just Perkins. I think everybody kind of agrees that Perkins and Etling, those are your two best quarterbacks. Now, which one is better? It depends what you view. If you're a guy like me who views the overall more serviceable, continuously good, low floor type of guy, Etling. If you want the guy that has the much higher upside, it's Perkins. They could use the 2 QB system. It's been working with Lewerke, and Etling is an upgrade over Lewerke. So if you were to upgrade Lewerke to Etling, you're talking about a potentially really good dual QB system. In the end, though, they're going to beat Houston. I think they win this one 34-21. I think that the spread is plus 3.5. I think that Houston does not cover. I don't see how they do, in all honesty. I don't see them covering. I think that game last week was them giving it all they had. It's just like the Generals, right? If you watched the USFL last year, there was that late season game the Generals won. And when you saw that game, you realized when you watched it, they probably gave everything they had in that game. It was just like this. It was like week 9 against Michigan, I believe. Apologies for not remembering exactly. But if you watch the USL, you know what I'm talking about. They went out there, did everything they could, or it was against Philly, I think. They did everything they could. They did like fakes. They did great passes. They like won by scoring like 34. It was like the highest point total they had all season. Then in week 10, they were just super flat and couldn't do anything. It feels like Houston gave it all they had last week. They put up their highest point total of the season. They were able to keep it close against Birmingham. And they're going to fall back to reality against Michigan and have the end score be very similar to the last time they played, 34-21. Does hit the over. I think 40 is way too low. Again, some of these may seem like sucker bets, especially 3.5. I think it's just that a lot of people might be, caring too much about what happened with Birmingham last week. I said it before that game. Houston was going to give him a fight. Now, I didn't expect him to give him that good a fight, but I knew they were going to keep it somewhat close. They're not going to keep this one close. Michigan beats them by 13. And then finally, for the overall betting record this week, last week was okay overall. But again, we had another perfect game betting prediction. The Birmingham game, I was 3 for 3 on that one. So we're now up to 6 on that one, making that 4 perfect games in the last 3 weeks. Still haven't gotten a perfect team score prediction, since week 1. There were a couple that were very close. Memphis was off by a point, San Antonio by 2 and all that. And then overall, 4-0 on the money line last week. All 4 teams, I picked basically the favorite, which, admittedly, I'm basically doing this week as well. But it worked, 4-0 then. Over-under was and the spread was back down to negative. But overall, we're still at a very good record overall. Still easily the best I've done on overall picks across the 3 seasons I've been doing this. So, take it. It's a really solid number. And so this has been ZomFox. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified as soon as I upload any videos. We're like 5 subscribers away from hitting 800, which is another huge milestone. We are doing a giveaway at 1,000 subscribers. For those of you who haven't seen the community post that came out earlier today, UFL Championship game tickets are available for those of you who do want to attend the game. I know I was able to get mine early, and I will say they're not as expensive as I was expecting them to be, despite it being in St. Louis. But I would recommend getting them sooner rather than later, especially if St. Louis ends up, making it to the championship game. And as always, guys, have a great night.